Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. A little bit about myself. My name is Terry. I was born and raised in Sydney, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. And after graduating high school in 1974, I moved west with the Hudson Bay Company Northern Stores to Portage La Loche, Saskatchewan. And for the next 5.5 years, I worked at retail stores across northern Saskatchewan, northern Manitoba, and northwestern Ontario. I then moved to Calgary and lived there about 1.5 years before taking a job with Environment Canada. I started with the Weather Service as a weather observer, then as an upper air observer, and a presentation specialist, and finally as a technical service officer. I lived in Saskatoon for the last 17 years, where I worked as that inspection technical service officer by traveling around the province, maintaining, installing, and inspecting weather stations. And in February of 2015, just over 1 year ago, I retired after 32 years of service. When I was in Cape Perry, which was my third posting, I believe, I started corresponding with a girl in the Philippines. I was introduced to her by a couple that I lived with while I was in Calgary. And Mary Lou and I wrote for about 2 years, and I decided to go down to the Philippines to meet her. So I traveled for my first time on an international flight into Manila and then into Cagayan de Oro, which was her home city, which is on the northern part of Mindanao in the southern islands. Over the 2 years that we'd written, I'd fallen in love with Mary Lou. She had great values, she had a wonderful personality, and she wasn't bad to look at either. So, after being there approximately 3 weeks, Mary Lou and I were married. And we've been married now for almost 32 years. Mary Lou came to Canada about 6 months later after the paperwork was completed for her visa. And she has traveled with me with Environment Canada to all the postings that I was at before settling here in Saskatoon. Mary Lou came from a moderately large family in the Philippines, and most of them have been sponsored here to Canada now. We have 5 of her brothers and their families live here in Saskatoon. 1 sister lives in Yellowknife, and 2 sisters live in Montreal. Remaining in the Philippines is 1 brother and his family, and his paperwork is being processed, and hopefully he will be in Canada within a year. Her mother still lives in the Philippines. She is elderly, in her early 80s, and she came to Canada for a while back in 1999, but she expressed an interest to return to the Philippines, I think because for a couple of reasons. One, it was a cold winter here in Saskatoon, and it was all her family was in the Philippines at that time, so I think she was kind of lonely. Now that the family is mostly in Canada now and abroad, she has expressed a desire to return to Canada. So we are looking at getting her a visa, a travel visa, which will allow her to stay up to 10 years. Problem is, it's a little expensive because we have to pay for health care in advance when somebody is visiting on a visitor's visa. So she's healthy right now, but like I said, she's in her early 80s, and we have to keep that in mind. So we'll see what happens. Since I retired, I've loved dealing with technology. And I guess I got the bug with Environment Canada, as where we were always dealing with new technology. And since I retired, I started doing stuff. And this is one of the things I like to do and I'm learning to do, and that is use the camera and do my first video log. And I love to travel as well, and this is a chance for me to document my travel and share with anybody who cares to watch and listen and learn about the things I learn as I travel across Canada, across North America, and into the Philippines. Our next holiday is coming up in May. Mary Lou and I are heading down to Nova Scotia, to my home country, our home city, and we will spend a couple of weeks there. It's a short visit. Mary Lou is still working and only gets 3 weeks holidays this year. So we're only staying there for about 2 weeks, and we'll be visiting Sydney and Halifax, and then we're going to take a run over to Prince Edward Island for a couple of days. I have a brother still in Sydney and a brother in Halifax. And then next spring, in 2017, we hope to go to the Philippines once again for a fairly short visit, around a month, and we're looking forward to that. And we're going to check out some of the cities, her home city, of course, Cagayan de Oro, and perhaps down to Davao, and maybe over to Cebu, Bohol, and perhaps into Dumaguete. I've heard a lot about Dumaguete, and I want to check it out. It looks like a very nice place. And then in the long term, Mary Lou retires from her work in 2019. So in 2020, I know that's a ways off, but our plan is to start spending the winters in the Philippines. And that means leaving Saskatoon probably in January and staying there until either the end of April or early May. So that's the plan, and that's what I like to do with this video log. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Once I figure out how to put a link to subscribe, I will do so. I will also include links on the blog to sites that I like to visit and places that with more information about the things that I talk about. Thank you again, and have a great day.